Okay, I'll just stop. So to begin with, it's a continuation of a debate that we actually started in the previous talk. But first, I am going to be although I'm an old white man, but I was young, yes, a little bit. I'm going to bring gifts from London. This is a book that they had, the type archive in London is being preserved by the Science Museum Group, and they found this in a stock. And they told me, I was there last Sunday helping out, and they said, bring 2 boxes and they're free to be taken. Only say them. It's not my gift, it's actually Sally Morris who is coordinating from the Type Archive Trust. It's a very complicated story there, but everything will be preserved. But, and that is what I wanted to say in sort of continuation of what Heike said, be aware of what you wish when museums preserve things. It's take, for instance, the Marit collection, 16th century material, UNESCO recognized. You won't go casting with those mats. You won't go printing with that type. And where do you draw the line? Matrices from 1850? Make the calculation. How old are they? From 1920? 1960? If you break them, if your type is worn, and there is no way of making new ones, all workshops stop. So that's sort of thing to think about. The second gift is, for those who haven't received it yet, some extra copies of the book from the APM that's also on the table. So in reply of using old equipment or old material is what you need to preserve is the way to make new type. And that is what sort of this round table is about. So I wanted to start with saying that the APM indeed started in 2003, and this is sort of a commemoration year, but that was already told a moment ago. And indeed, at that time, the raison d'etre of the organization was passing on the skills, the know-how of the intangible heritage to know and understand tangible heritage, which is kept in printing museums and in collections. And it is the key, if you understand all that, on how printed matter was made in such quantities and qualities that it was able to make a change in society. And by being aware that letterpress is what we are talking about again, and at last year's conference there was a good talk that printing museums don't only have to focus on letterpress, that their interest zones should be expanded to design, art, or maybe even the whole circle of communication. My round table, or this round table, or your round table, is actually about letterpress, but not about the printing, but about the machines that make the things where you print with. As my favorite type historian Harry Card said, the thing you pick up and hold in your hand. But today it's not a piece of type, but it will be a line of type or a slug. Why is this important? I think, as has been said often and has been done in museums, you can get away with cheating on the true art of printing, of historical printing in workshops. You can do things which are not according to the disciplines and protocols. You can put type in the bed of a proof press and a hand press with magnets instead of locker. But if you put that in a mechanical machine, it'll fly all over the place. So you can cut corners with printing, but not with machines that make these things. All these things were debated in the 3 or 4 pre-pandemic conferences in the UK. Letterpress, printing, past, present, future. There was a whole array of talks. And on June, the book will be launched. And I wrote a chapter in that about the true historical craft of printing, which should be preserved for other reasons than what is used in workshops. Because in workshops and in museum demos, you can cut the corners. You can, for art, not follow the typographical rules, and you make it fun. What you can't make fun is repairing and maintaining machines that make type, that make slugs. You have the disciplines and protocols, and if you don't follow them, the machine won't work. There's only one type of people that can repair or maintain these machines, and those are machine technicians, and they are indeed dying out. And it's that knowledge that needs to be transferred in order to continue to make materials, in order to supply the typographical workshops. And then I'm leaving out the dark cloud of the EU coming down, or the dangers of lead. We won't mention that, because then we'll need more manipulations of gloves and masks and signs and ever to be able to print with metal type as such. So if the technicians are no longer available, how do you do this? Well, there are several ways. In some museums, like the Plaats van de Rit in my boattown, they have no need for this kind of technicians. They have old equipment, and they try to figure out, or they are figuring out, by a renewed interest in describing the punches, the matrices, the copper plates and everything, in comparison with the preserved archive. They can reconstruct when they were made, which books they were used, and in such way sort of reimagine or rewrite the history of how objects and actual printing relate to each other, which is a great thing. But nevertheless, they also have a demonstration area. And I just got news that last week, 2/3 of the museum opening times, there was permanence on the replica wooden press where demos were done. Because as you all experienced last night, if that big machine was there doing nothing, yes, I think the sandwiches would have been more interesting from the beginning. And which brings us back to the round table. I totally deviated from what I was doing. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the American Typecasting Fellowship Conference in the USA. Same thing there. They are about typecasting then, which is what is on the table for below table. So it's there. Today's is, they're all about the technology of using these machines and making them usable for the future. And the doyen of that organization, Rich Hopkins, once said, you preserve the technology by doing it. Not by writing about it, not by keeping the machines. You have to have people to do it. And you can't expect them all to be paid full wages. You have to have some enthusiasm. And but I know you have to pay you have to pay the bread. So what sparked the idea of having this roundtable is three things that happened last year. Jan Erik Overgaard from the Press Museum Field Lund in Norway posted a little text on the APO website, of which I will quote a few sentences. He says, in our press museum, we have a collection of 4 working hot metal setting machines. We are fortunate to have within our museum's association a few volunteer workers skilled in maintaining and using these machines. The problem is that they get older. He assumes that it's the same situation in the whole of Europe, and he ends with an outcry, someone needs to start organizing this on a European basis. Could this be a task for the ABM? But it was, as said, already started in 2003, and I think a lot has been done. A lot of stuff has been kept and being kept alive, but of course, not everything, and that is a difficult thing. The second thing that made me thinking about this was that I have chose to be part of a master-pupil trajectory paid by the Flemish government last year, of which more will be told. And the third thing was in that, we visited Tipperary in Switzerland, where we met Percy Penzel, who is an itinerant line casting machine operator, a repair technician, and a teacher, and who, at request, can go to any museum and teach and make machines work again at a fee, I suppose. So our roundtable was supposed to be these 3 people, but he's doing exactly what we are talking about. He's now somewhere giving a course in typecasting machinery. So our roundtable is a bit triangular, or I don't know what form that gets, with only 2 people, and they are experts by experience. Their case studies will be presented now by Maarten, Renkens, and Marit, Brandsnes, who have made, I think, a joint slideshow and talks. But it is the intention that you intervene or answer or come up with better solutions or other solutions or say, well, let's just all give it up and put things away. But I would give the screen to the 2 participants and tell them, well, tell your story. So they'll take this.
The first thing, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to join this roundtable ish discussion. My name is Marit. I am a board member and a volunteer at the Norwegian News Museum. We are located in Røros, a small town in the middle of an amazing jumping you my notes here. We're located in Røros, a small mining town. It's amazing. It's located in Norway. The city is listed in UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. The museum is volunteer-driven, located in the same house as newspaper Tenjo, moved into in the 1891. We are about 15 volunteers from all over Norway. We get together 3 times a year, printing, line casting, and hand setting together a 4-page broadsheet newspaper. You can have a look at it later. We have called out for recruitment help. Our line casting experts are getting older, and so does the recruits. We did have a great success with our project with the Norwegian Craft Institute, and we had have a new line casting recruit following this within this frame of this program. But he is also getting older. So at this point, we have an application within the youth system for founding a project to gather people for training in wet press equipment, especially with a focus on line casting. We have, as you said, 4 line casting machines in Oslo, and we would love to host a workshop like this. And Jan Erik is here as well, and he knows more about the focus. So this is our call out. So for a little help. Okay, let's take it in.
So that's what I also called about. So that was natural. I'm going to quickly, but I also said about it, type of they have a museum, and Percy, who couldn't be here, also is just doing the workshops. This is what we are talking about today, is just doing it. Is explaining, is traveling across Germany and other countries, just explaining people how to use the machine. And that's one of the interesting points that he is doing. So, and then I get to my point. A master pupil project, it's one way to preserve this knowledge. I'm starting at the beginning. I'm not associated with any organization. I'm just an enthusiastic person. I just like those machines. And I keep them running just out of my interests. So while I studied, I did an internship at school. I worked there for a while. They had a machine, and they gave me the assignment, get it to work. Because we want to do demos, we want to show the students how it is washed. I did. I went to the machine. I decided I cannot do this alone. I have no background. I have the background in graphic design, but no background on those machines. So I did a call for help on the internet. I found Sus. Sus is a technician and an operator. He studied for working on those machines. He's one of the latest ones. So in Belgium, there are 2 people who still operate and maintain those machines, Sus and Leon. And we were both in contact, we talked, and I started studying about those machines and how to operate them and how to use them. But on both, using those machines is one thing, operating them, but traveling around to maintain them and learn about them, it takes time. And as Patrick also told, you need to have some money to
together, like. So I was looking to other possibilities to get some finance space to work on those machines. I'm going to explain one possible thing that we have in Flanders is a master pupil project. Our government sees funding for that. For historical projects, all kinds of projects, I'm quickly going to change to their website. So we studied, I learned a lot about those machines. And one of the nice things I did, I immediately said I want to digitize it. Because one of my concerns was, okay, I'm doing it. I felt like an island alone. Because I am doing it, but I have nobody else close by. And if I'm doing it, yeah, most people are just interested in operating those things and not how to maintain it. And it's kind of the problem I encountered. So that's one of the things I put everything online about how to use it. Another way to share knowledge and to preserve knowledge. It's one of my concerns. If I will there anymore, even less people will do it. So, and that's why I also am doing now with the audience. That's my background. And one of the problems I encountered is that less and less machines were mean. I'm busy with this for 2 years. And I saw complete workshops, like talk this morning, complete workshops scrapped. Machine, or nobody can use it anymore. Or it's too old. That's no use. Yeah, for the price of the metal, it's cracked. And that's one of the problems. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I hope to think that the audience will interact. Also, if you have experience, like for example, the Industrial Museum is also a master pupil project running now, so that we get some interaction about ways like presenting now my way, how I could do it. But if you have another way, but on other ideas, please feel free to join in. The purpose is that we now have some talks. And I also want to know, I have some questions, because I'm talking with this with a lot of passion. I really like, if you put a machine over here, I would stop for hours. So, but my main question now is, how many museums have mechanical typesetting apparatus? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's right it is. And how many of those machines have those apparatus in working condition? That's quite a lot. I'm happy with that. And I'm really happy with that.
You only saw people say.
I know, so yeah. And what's the kind of experience of it? Is that easy to maintain them? How do you do it?
You have to set a goal. You want to produce something. I wanted to make new types. So I had to engrave new matrices and to get ready my machines to deal with it. And when you have a goal, you should just go to the end of the goal. And second thing, always start a project. You want to reach something. So what Patrick said, just do something, not looking at the machines and trying to understand, but let them work for you. Do concrete things. I made 200 new matrices. I had to find out. I went to a type arching in London. What are the parameters I have to take into account making new matrices? So I got above the table the things that are already nearly hidden. And then I found matrices from 1860, and there was a meet in Hong Kong that they wanted to have the types from it. Now, I found the solution, and I worked the whole year. Not the 5,000 goal was not reached. Corona came in between, and technical problems also. But this year, 16 students from Hong Kong come to study the typecasting of Chinese characters in the north of Amsterdam. So set goals and try to reach something. And then you have to solve a lot of problems. But when you just want to look how it is working and you don't know that you want to make, then you never will reach anything.
Yep. No, I just bad to it.
So, what do the other museums think? Do they handle the same thing, or do they just show in machines?
So it's on this level of workshops and demonstrational purposes. And what do you do when it breaks down? Who do you go to? And that's something I think as European or even worldwide help groups, well, actually they generate themselves. That they already exist. You know people who know things. Like like the museum where the coaters will be next year. You tell it.
Working linotype. I mean, I'm one operator who's I would guess self-taught and just is someone who happens to be able to fix and work with almost every machine. And we do have a monotype as well, which was not working well, now it's semi-working. This amazing operator actually managed to get it, was starting to work it out without ever seeing one in operation. But then we did have to work with Patrick as well, helped a lot with this, and with recommendations to work with Ian from the UK, and to actually get it started, and then realizing that we're missing a lot of materials and yeah.
So Ian, that was a volunteer because it's now closed at the time of London. He already had regular trips to the Tipoteca where he works on the monotypes, and then he took another trip, and he does that, well, out of passion, partly.
He's amazing,
and so there is some self-generation of help, but it might be better to coordinate it. Although I doubt whether there is really need, because you can't expect somebody who does this voluntarily to have to go to some country and have to make a machine. They have to have the time and the money and the knowledge. And there's also a great interrelationship with parts, because there's people who have a lot of parts and people who don't have any parts. So it's not about selling them anymore. It's just giving them out, because I think those in this type making business, which you need to continue the printing thing, is a lot of collegiality worldwide. It's kind of amazing. So the whole image is not so negative, I think. But there is always more needed.
No, and I think it's definitely with because I hadn't been to the AEPN conference until last year, so I didn't actually, we sometimes fly alone in Saudia. We have our own little island where we're working. And then it was through that, and then also going to Tipoteca for another project. So we started to be able to share materials. Like Tipoteca lent me some matrices that I tried to take back in my hand luggage on the plane. Luckily got it through, but it took a while, where they were like holding this club-like material, like asking each other about whether it was okay to take on the plane.
You didn't know that.
Yeah, everyone. So yeah, that's it.
So that is one of the solutions of the problem is indeed having live conferences where these things happen during the coffee break. It's not always the structured solution that is the best, but any more ideas? So.
Yeah, and if we come with the back of him, I'm reading for a book and a book history, so I can tell you a lot about machines that we have. Like now we have a call for a creator who will come hopefully soon and has to take care of our machines. So our hope is that the person could also bring machines to work.
Yeah.
And because now we have some machines, I tell you from my but without the money, but they are not working, as you say, or we have far less people in our museum who can do that.
Yeah.
And that's our hope with this new position of a curator who has to have historical but also practical knowledge of it. So I think next year at the meeting we can tell more, or this person who will need some exchange with all of their museums and all. Very this.
Is that the machines in the museum or in the workshop next to it?
Well, in the workshop you can have people to work with it, but in the museum.
Yeah, I just talking.
Was last Lord Taylor.
I was just talking this morning to somebody that, does anybody remember that there were working machines in the basement of the Gutenberg Museum? Because they're all connected. So they did work at some point. They aren't in too well. Yeah. But it's just the only one Monday is on the newest goals. And they are so loud. Okay. Is that like the linotype, and is that about health and safety, or is that just for me? I think machines. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the highlight cylinder is working, from the so the secret working.
So we should call for application, right?
Yeah. Of course, we from the this museum for Tokos tonight. We have a lot of machines in working conditions, of course. But the problem is to keep that in working condition. That's our problem. Yeah. So that's for the presentation. Because you have to work with them from morning to the afternoon. You have to produce things to keep the knowledge alive, because you have to work the machine every day. But in fact, is that our technicians are more involved in guided tours. So sometimes I feel that we are more shown than a workshop or workshops. That's the problem at the moment. Yeah. And because the machine, they have to be in the practice every day, and that's a problem for us as museums. We are of course obliged to do guided tours, but in fact our technicians, they hate guided tours. They cannot say, yeah, that's the point.
As a British historian, I try to gather a lot of oral history of ancient workers. And for instance, in one of the biggest monotype shops, Friday, they stopped production and they did maintenance. So you don't only have working machines, you have maintenance that is oiling, getting piece apart. I mean, we've done it the last year, a lot of things. And if the machine doesn't work for a month, then you got problems to start up. And not like switch on, switch off, and it'll start. So, and it's that sort of programs of how do you keep that going is indeed, and that is something I don't know, because if you have, for instance, an itinerant repairman coming by, well, he fixes it and it runs, the week after it needs oil here and there, so that has to be done. So it's these things that the disciplines and protocols need to be maintained. It's not like it's no art. It's and that is a thing that was aware when the industry was alive. There was a book in Holland called The Psychology of the Monotype Operator, where they list off what kind of person that should be. He should not be a typographer. He should not be a designer. He should be somebody who can fix things, who is mathematical, who is phlegmatical, and who is very systemized. And it's an interesting book to read, and I think that those people don't necessarily relate to printing museums. You need technical people who also want to, like you say, you work on the machines. You don't want to make texts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making texts, so I could do that, but that's not what I'm going at those.
And then there is something that you just mentioned, Stefan, is that there was a time, and there might still be, the typographical limitations of metal type makes artistic things sometimes not possible. You can't kern every letter. You can do a bit, but so it's all kind of things that creep out the corners. So any more suggestions?
I presented to share one story. It's from Profile Museum, Holland, in Łódź. And I insist to this thing you said about collegiality.
that's the thing that really struck me, because this is also somehow connected with our meeting with the late Mr. Schumacher Gabler, because we had an honor to host him in our museum, and then also to go in person to see his workshops and how they work. And we were wondering, because Mr. Gannard wanted to borrow from us this extension for a monotype caster to put the matrices, because he wanted to print the copy of a Gutenberg Bible. And this was, I think, his last project. And we were wondering, okay, so we obviously will give the element to him, but without this element, we cannot cast the cons anymore, obviously, for some time, which is totally fine. And then we wanted to ask one person who was also a specialist in casting in Canada, maybe some know, so you know him, Dan Johns, and then culture, and asking what would be, like what happens if the element gets lost or like it gets broken. And then he said, don't worry, I will just give you one. And then you will give me something in exchange. Yes, and that it will be fine. Yeah, so this is like really that I cannot discover in this environment that is like very like worldwide connected and very supportive.
Yeah. And I can tell you that the Gutenberg page that Eckhart wanted to make was made in time and sent to Korea for the exhibition, but it wasn't cast. I still had enough standing time.
And so and we are still waiting for a copy.
Yeah, but they must be. But I think he never saw it finished. Just because plastic innovation psychology, perhaps a cautionary tale, but which does have a positive element in it. In Lille, in the painting museum, where we had a later type. The later type came in the 1990s. And it came with its operator, Charlotte. He was a wonderful man, so wonderful man. And he volunteered for 50 years to operate the machine. And Charlie was a traditionalist. He just sat tight and he only, but he wouldn't touch anything that was in the workings of the machine. That was for a technical, which was potentially extremely complicated. And then one day, we came upon a young Heidelberg engineer who offered to maintain the machine recently. Wonderful. And because studying here, serious Heidelberg engineer, model engineer, young, yield before to look after machines. And they came to get into a line today. The problem was that Charlie out here later to this ring field, so long as the engineer stuck to oiling, greasing, and fiddling slightly with little pieces, but the day the question arose, which involved actually seriously taking a fast the machine to the bearing. I think Charlie almost had a heart attack, and then he thought to me about a non-time served line type mechanic touching the machine the table for 16 years or so. But then the positive thing, super, that you do find people like this Skimmel, the Heidelberg engineer, who are that capable of getting into that kind of business of serious maintenance for machines. And that gave that all sorts of things as people.
Yeah, the greeting process is also the matter actually. So it's not only the casting machines, it's also the presses. We had 1 year of trying to get a press repaired at our workshop in Dresden, and we didn't find anyone who wanted to help us or was able to help us. And I had to talk about 2 connections, and finally after 1 year we found someone. but it was just because he knew me of other project that he was like, okay, for you, I'll do it. And so I think this is also a growing problem. Find anybody who's printing presses to manage them. And I had the contact to Switzerland to FID and in Lausanne, and they had an elderly man who was able to carry all presses, and he told me they have with an external warehouse with a lot of material to replace stuff which is broken. And the warehouse is, for 5 years, it's full for now. But afterwards, he don't know what is happening because actually it's getting too costly and they don't know what to do with it. And if he is retiring, which is also making 5 years or something, there is probably no one who can repair them anymore or has the parts to repair them. So I think it's a growing problem, and we also need some probably better connections to some mechanicals in every field, not just linotype or holotype, but also the presses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I take the bad part of interacting all this and
Yeah, can I just, wouldn't it be a really simple thing to make a database? If we heard of one of these things was finding a connection. If I hadn't come to the ABM, I wouldn't for people who are available to repair what kind of machines, if you have spare parts.
The thing is that our lists online, there are websites of Type Metal, ATF.
Okay.
It is, those who know. So indeed, you have to just find out. You can make another database. After the ATF conference, there were 5 websites. People said, we're going to make a website, but it already existed. So it's like, to concentrate the knowledge. But
how do we do that? Because I feel like that's...
Yeah.
That again, we have APM, so...
Yeah, so you can do it with yourself. It could go. I think it would be a good idea to have that on the ABM, like the red phone.
Yeah, you have to open you like an American website with really all related to typecasting. You can find there, and from there you can go on to individuals. You have metal type, an English guy that is, and you can put questions and you get even answers on type things, and you have David Bolton on monotype. All documentation that is existing is accessible there, and even when you are lucky, you can find him on the phone in the evening, and he will give advice as long as he is not in New Zealand or so.
But then, if I just may, there is one question we didn't answer. When, as a community, are we happy that we've saved the typesetting industry? Where is our level? Where are we aiming for? Because the first question I have from my colleagues in the museum is, why do we need 3 machines working? Why aren't we happy with 2 machines? So where are we aiming for?
And again, that is... I think that's a very proper question to all of you members and the board especially, to try to organize platforms to debate in smaller scale and larger scale. I don't think that our conference is the only good plane and way of getting to solutions, but we have to have a sort of collection of a variety of platforms to debate. And I think our website, and I'll get back to that tomorrow, is a real first anchor point to collect information, to collect the possibility of questions in all sorts, and should be a good platform to exchange information. Maybe there should be something special on the website to have a sort of blog or exchange possibility. I don't know, but I'm slightly. We will discuss what kind of information connection system should be possible. I say I take the bad part in as much as I want to have your, first of all, I want to say thank you very much to the